Eragiogun. Wait, I have to turn this on. Shall I try that again? Eragiogun. How's my pronunciation? Lo siento, non hablo vasco, poco más español. Entonces, I'm going to present to you in English this evening, but I will be happy to speak with those of you who can ask me questions in Spanish or, of course, English, or we can try Italian, some French, a little German every now and then. I'm still working on my Basque. You can help me out with that afterwards. So I actually first would very much like to thank my hosts here. I have had such a wonderful whirlwind tour of the Basque Country, 2 days in Bilbao, and today I tried to see as much as I could of San Sebastian and also the Ekaina Berry. And it's just been wonderful because I've been very encouraged to find that I don't think there's really that much difference between what you're doing and what we're doing at the Smithsonian or what I see other museums around the world doing. In fact, I was asked yesterday what I was going to teach you all today, and I said, frankly, I think I'm going to learn a lot more than I can teach. You're doing amazing work, absolutely at the cutting edge of what's going on with 2.0 technologies and, more importantly, ways of thinking. Because fundamentally what we're talking about here is not technology. It's about a cultural shift that gets us to think, as I'm fond of saying, not in a unidirectional, our cultural institutions preach and transmit knowledge and wisdom to the audience, but rather in a bi-directional, conversational way. This is the massive cultural shift that I think is happening now. Yes, facilitated and perhaps you might even say driven to some extent by the technology, but ultimately it's much, much more than the technology. And you can do social media, you can do Web 2.0 as it were, on post-it notes and paper and analog technology too, if you're thinking in a conversational way. So let's see if I can figure out this bit of the technology. So I thought I would just start off by introducing a little bit of the Smithsonian. It's a question I like to puzzle over. What is the museum? What is the Smithsonian in this Web 2.0 world of information on demand? You know, as has been asked by Bran Farron, who was the creative director of Disney Imagineering, came and lectured at the Smithsonian, and he said, we really need to face seriously the question of, are museums a fad? Were they a nice idea? They had a good run, and but now their time is over, and we're moving on to something new. So I'm really interested in this question of what is the museum and applying it to the Smithsonian in particular. Well, this is what the Smithsonian is for many people. This is actually just one of our buildings. It's the castle. It's the original building. The Smithsonian was founded in the 19th century, actually, as a bequeath from a British gentleman named James Smithson. He was a citizen scientist, a chemist, who left his estate to the United States government for the purpose of the increase and diffusion of knowledge. And eventually the American government got around to founding the Smithsonian, and today, well, last year we got more than 30 million physical visitors and more than 180 million virtual visitors, that is, visitors to our websites. Actually, the Smithsonian is, as Juanjo mentioned, 19 museums, 7 research centers. You said 2 zoos. We normally say 1, but you know what? You're probably right. The second zoo is my office, I think. And really physically spread out. We're in New York, we're in Washington, we've got a Tropical Studies Research Center in Panama, we've got an observatory in Boston, a lot of astrophysicists up there. So it is really a physical as well as an intellectual network. We also work with many affiliate museums around the United States. But I think today it's important to really start thinking about that 180 million virtual visitor number. And the fact that our audiences are now accessing the Smithsonian and indeed your cultural institutions as well through a wide range of platforms beyond our walls and even beyond our own websites. So whether we have a website or not, we are on the web. In fact, we can think of museums and the Smithsonian as distributed networks. This is a little map that I made. When I started out at the Smithsonian 2 years ago, I was head of new media for the Smithsonian American Art Museum. And this is a map I made of all of the platforms that the museum currently existed on or was actively pursuing being on. The green ones are the physical, real-world platforms. So there's, of course, the museum building itself, but also its brochures, its catalogs, its docents who gave live tours of the collection. The yellow ones are the digital properties that the museum controls, its website, its blog, its Twitter stream, its podcasts. The red ones are digital platforms that the museum does not control, but on which we find our content. So Flickr, a very large amount of photographs of the Smithsonian on Flickr, not just in the museum's own Flickr group. We're on YouTube, we're in Wikipedia, we're in iTunes, etc. The blue blobs over here are the platforms that are mobile, that the museum controls in some way. So these are cell phone tours, text messaging-based games, traditional audio tours, and the like. I think we can think of the museum not just in terms of this technological view, these platforms, if you will, but really as a social network. And this is the American Art Museum where I worked up until very recently. And you can think of it as its catalogs, its brochures, as I said, its live guides, its kiosks, its audio tour, perhaps a multimedia tour, cell phone tours, podcasts, its website, its blog, Flickr, YouTube channels. We're on Facebook, Google Maps, Twitter, Wikipedia, iPod, either mobile websites or applications. And last but by no means least, our physical network. This is our community outreach. This is what we do through our affiliate museums and through taking our programs on the road out into the community, which is just as powerful a social network for being analog-based.